Hey everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hope everyone's having a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started. Welcome to Tech Sales Triumph, Navigating Interviews and Best Practices, presented by Women in Sales. My name is Joy, also known as the Joyful Recruiter on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm an experienced sales recruiter. I have successfully recruited different types of sales professionals in various industries, including tech. For the next hour, our panelists will discuss helpful interviewing tips, discuss best practices, and answer several of your frequently asked questions. I will start off by asking you to introduce yourselves and share a little about yourselves, starting with Candace.
Hey, hello, everybody. So I'm Candace Spinks. I am a business development rep at a company called Set Sale. It's a startup. Been there for a while, newer to this space. And I'm also the director of outreach of Women in Sales. So I've just been having a ton of fun. We've been doing this parenthood in sales community, women in sales community events, just everything to kind of get everyone involved. So excited about today's discussion and just want to share more about my experience and if I'm able to help anyone. That's what I hope.
Thank you, Candace. Liz, it is your turn.
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Thanks so much for having us and for joining this. I'm really excited to, just share some best practices on interviewing. So, for my full-time job, I'm an account executive at Salesforce, and I also am the head of community for Women in Sales. So for some of the new faces who aren't aware, Women in Sales is focused on elevating, empowering, and promoting women within the sales profession. So Alexine is going to share out some links to join if you're new to the community. So really excited for this session.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, my first question for both of you, what led you to a career in sales? And also, how did you enter into the tech industry?
Candace, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Yeah. So what led me is I wanted something new. So I actually came from the medical field. I was there for about 14 years. Loved it. Did really good at what I was doing. But I wanted something that had more of a career path for me and just where I felt like I was growing more. And then, of course, like the salary to match the value of work that I'm putting in. So because I'm a mom of two, I wanted something that was flexible where I could still work from home potentially and then still be present in my household with my children. So I actually went through a nonprofit who's actually a partner of Women in Sales Rework Training. So I went through their program, found out that some of my skills are transferable, and I was like, yo, this is awesome. And then from there, I just started the journey and I landed an awesome role at a company and just been having a lot of fun in this space since.
Excellent, Candace. I love how you spoke about your transferable skills. Also, the importance of being able to have that flexibility to work in a remote environment, especially if you are a parent. So, thank you for that. All right, Liz, I'm excited to hear about your journey.
Yeah, so my journey is a little different than Candace's. I think where I really learned a lot about sales is in college. So I was a marketing major, trying to navigate and figure out, what I wanted to do with my career. I knew I wanted to go into business, but where I really found sales was we actually had a sales program at the university that I was at. So someone recommended I just take some classes, see what it's all about. And I think what really got me excited was, with sales, obviously the flexibility like Candace talked about, but I think the biggest thing for me is just the ability to learn. So a lot of my professors, a lot of the students that were in the classes worked in sales. So just hearing their experience about, the opportunities to grow, the money, obviously it doesn't hurt either. I think we all want that flexibility. I know something that really drives me personally is living the life that I didn't really have as a kid. So I think, breaking into sales, my first job was I was a BDR at Groupon, and that really was like a grind. actually I did work with Candace's husband like years and years ago. Groupon making over 100 cold calls a day. And I think what really got me to break into sales, tech sales specifically, it was always just a goal that I had. Lots of my friends sold SaaS, and it was really exciting. It's ever changing, and kind of going back to that, like learning. I love to learn. So, like with tech sales, there's always something to learn. So really just kind of clawed my way in. I just networked my butt off. I really just started like putting my feelers out. I started applying for jobs in tech, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is kind of got there.
Excellent, Liz. I loved that you spoke about taking classes when you were in college that were specifically related to sales. I don't always think people think about that those options are now out there. So that's great. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to go back to you, Liz. What tactics would you recommend to someone who is seeking a sales career or sales position, in tech?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, people have this mindset that breaking into tech is so hard. You have to be so knowledgeable on technology, and you have to have all these expertise, and you have to know everything. And quite frankly, I'm learning every single day in my sales role. I think all the certifications, all the degrees, all the things, I think the biggest thing that really sets apart candidates and what helped me break into sales is that mindset. So, really being driven, being motivated, being hungry makes any sales person like really good at their job, because you get a lot of no's. Sales is, I always say, like peaks and valleys. So there's good parts of sales, there's bad parts of sales. But if you have that mindset and you're hungry and really excited, like Candace was saying, there's so many transferable skills of folks that maybe don't have, a background in sales, or maybe they don't have experience in sales, but all of that is very transferable. I know tons of people who were teachers and are now working in sales, or were nurses or doctors or other various things. And even lawyers, I have friends that were lawyers that now break into sales. So like truly, like everything that you learn in different jobs is really transferable. And one thing that I learned when I was in college is every job that you have really is a sales job. It may not have a sales title. So if you think about it in that framework, you can definitely, there are definitely things that you can talk about in interviews to really get you into that sales role.
That is great advice. My takeaway from that is grit. You need grit to be successful. Candace, anything that you would like to add or recommend to someone who's looking for a position in tech sales?
Yeah, so some of the same things she said, but also I would add community. Like community is everything. And that's what helped me the most, like building a community. And I know it's like if you're new in this space, you're like, how do I build a community? So one of the tactics that I do and that I did in the past, I continue to do, is I do informational interviews with people in this space. So whether they're in roles that I'm currently in or roles that I want to get to, and just organically build my community, just having conversations with them, picking their brain, maybe asking them if we can hop on a quick coffee chat. That's helped out a ton. And you'll find that like a lot of people really want to help. Like a lot of people want to help people on their journey. And for me, that was invaluable. And I continue to say that to like anyone new in this space, like keep reaching out, build your community, because your community can support you through everything. The interview process can be a little bit, stressful. It could, take its toll on you because you're not used to getting a lot of no's. So that can, hit your confidence. But that community there is to support you and help you see like, what could I've done differently? What can I do better next time? And what did I do good on, and really celebrate those moments with you. So I feel like my community helped a ton. I still have mentors that helped me when I first got in this space. We still do check-ins. And it's awesome. Some of them are like in C-suite roles now. So just keep building your community, because I think it helps you transition easier for sure.
Absolutely. And I would also say be proactive in doing so, because sometimes people are a little shy, but if you're looking to get into sales, you really have to be proactive. So yeah, absolutely. Great point. Thank you so much. All right. So How have you successfully built your personal brand? Candace, I'm going to go to you about this.
Yeah, so that was a challenge for me because to what you said, like I'm an introvert, and so for me, coming from the medical field, it was easy for me to hide behind scenes and just do work with the doctor, and no one really sees me. But now I'm in a space where you have to be present more. So I just started slow, and I focused on family because that's what's close to my heart, and I focused on balance. And just sharing my experience or even my challenges with people throughout this journey has been helpful. Making sure that like I'm present. So maybe I'm not a major poster where I don't post like every couple days, but if I can get myself to post every 2 weeks, or if something awesome happened, posting about it. I think that has helped me a ton with my brand. And then just being yourself, like showing up authentically is huge. So not trying to mimic other people's brands,
Mhm.
like, stay in your own lane and just be yourself. And you'll find people who are just, loving what you're doing, curious about what you're doing, new to the space, and they can relate to you. I mean, I know I'm not for everyone, but I know I'm for someone. And for that reason, I like to just show up authentically and just make sure, I post things that I enjoy and things that I know people who follow me would enjoy looking at as well. And not so much focused on, getting to 20K followers and nothing like that. Just doing it naturally and letting the followers come on their own.
Yeah, thank you so much. Authenticity definitely matters when building a personal brand. I would love to hear your point of view about that, Liz.
Yeah, so I think I'm actually very similar to Candace. Like I'm still like building my brand, and I think one thing that it's so funny because I also don't post like every single day, but when I do post though, I have folks like reach out and they're like, "We love that article," or like we watched that video that you had shared. And I think that for me is like that's the biggest impact. It doesn't matter like how many likes it got, but if someone like messages me or I had a meeting yesterday with one of my colleagues and they're like, "Hey, like you posted about, like connecting with people on Slack and that's awesome. Like, how did you do that?" And I was like, "How did you know?" And they're like, "Oh, I saw your post." And I was like, "Oh, that's so great." So I think it's like really just like Candace said, really being vulnerable too and just being honest, right? Sales, no one wants to hear just about like the happy and the positive and everything. Like being vulnerable, like it's hard, or you have a bad day or you lose a deal. So I think the more that you can kind of share like the good, the bad, the ugly, I think more people can relate to you. So I love that. And I think leaning on other folks too. I loved that you talked about community, really asking people what's top of mind, understanding. And then I think just leveraging, that community and asking people what's relevant, and just being honest, and vulnerable about what you're going through. Because a lot of people can relate. And I think that's how you make the most impact.
Absolutely. Being relatable, I know that has helped me in building my brand. So, yeah, that's a great point.
And I was
All
gonna
right.
say, Liz, I was gonna say, it's so funny you say that when you were like they looked at your post, because when I first was posting and people were bringing it up at work, I was like, you guys actually look at my page, like, okay.
I saw the same thing this week. I was like, "Oh, okay."
It was an adjustment at first, so that's where it's like just post and be natural with it, and then you never know who's watching.
This is so true. That is so true. All right. Well, actually, this is a question. I'm sure you both will have a lot to say about it. Um, I'll let you go first, Candace. What advice can you share about networking and why is it so important?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying my advice with networking is just to be genuinely curious. So it's hard when you get on LinkedIn, I feel like in particular, and there's so many people there. There's so many loud voices and thought leaders. And it's almost like, what do I do? What do I have to say? Like, this is overwhelming. Maybe I won't do it. And I find a lot of people that I speak with, some of the candidates that I coach, they'll say that. They'll say just that. Like, this isn't for me. Like, there's too many people on there. This is too big, or I just don't know what to say or what to do. And it's so valuable to network just because not only do you grow, but then that's like your social currency in a sense as well. Like that's your brand. Like that's going to always go with you no matter what company you're with. Like your brand will always be your brand. And so it's huge. So for me, like, I started off by just trying to make myself not appear as a bot. So putting things on my LinkedIn that I love and enjoy. I talk about my family a ton. I talk about cooking because I love it. And I started following people who had similar interests. And that made me get more comfortable with actually being on the platform and using the platform. And then I just wanted to make sure that, like, okay, I'm not just here, but like, and I'm not just liking people's posts, but I'm actually engaged with them. So I started engaging with posts more. I started like emailing people or DMing them and just telling them like, I absolutely love this post and here's why. And from there, like, it helps my network. A lot of people, from that still check out into me with me to this day. I remember when I was first starting like cold outreach and I was like, I don't even know what to say in these emails and these cold calls. All of this is intimidating. So I went on LinkedIn and I browsed through and there were a ton of people who were talking about it. So then I just said to them, like, is this real? Like, can we talk about it? And we hopped on a call. And from there, I started getting more people connecting with me in my network who are like, just shoot me your messaging and I'll tell you what I think of it and how it feels and how you're coming off. And here's why. And I would have never gotten that if I just didn't step out and just work on really networking with more people. So I enjoy it. I had to overcome the fear of like in-person networking. Because like I said, I'm an introvert. So to me, it's like I'm walking in a room with 100 of you guys and you guys have these big personalities. So I was a little more timid and quiet at first, but now it's like, I just look at everyone as like a potential coworker, potential friend, someone that I can potentially learn from, like a mentor. And I'm genuinely curious. I'm asking all the questions, picking their brain, trying to hear their journey in this space. And from there, like, your network just continues to grow. And it's so vital because if you don't have a network, like in this space, especially tech sales, like you show up like you're a bot and no one ever wants to look like a bot or a spammer. Like you want there to be some type of engagement on your account, real pictures of you, not just like the the LinkedIn logo. And you just want to like really be like a real human to everyone because then that'll get the conversations going. And then from there, they'll organically intro you to people and to new business opportunities. So I've had that help a ton, when, maybe a month was tight and I wasn't close to goal. All of a sudden, 2 people reach out to me like, tell me what your product does. And I'm like, oh, and that would have never happened if I didn't like start working on building my network. So that's your money right there. That's your social currency. And I'm like really big on networking.
Excellent. Thank you. Liz, I'd love to hear from you about the importance of networking.
Yeah, I think +1 to everything Candace said. Could not agree more. Social currency. And I think a lot of it, so from like I've mentored folks in the past. I've also been a mentee. So I think I'll kind of talk about when you're a mentee, what like is important when you're reaching out to a mentor. I think first it's just like finding stuff that you can relate to. So I love what Candace talked about. Hey, I'm a parent, maybe finding other parents that can mentor you. Or hey, I'm from Chicago. I like tap into that network just because like so many people, if you find something in common, the more likely they are. So I also love to bake and I love to cook. I have that on my LinkedIn. I talk about my favorite desserts and like my favorite foods on my bio. But I think really just finding folks that you can connect with, someone that has something in common with you. And then I think the biggest thing and feedback that I've gotten or I've shared with folks is always like be prepared. So, when you reach out to folks, do a little bit of prep work. My best interactions with folks that I've helped from like a mentor perspective are ones that like came prepared. They asked pointed questions. They sent a personalized invite. And even though it takes more time, that's like when I've had some of the best conversations with folks, because they took the time because as much as I like want to help everyone, like I want to invest in the right people too, from like a mentor perspective. And then from a mentee perspective, when I'm reaching out to people that I want to be like my mentor, really just knowing exactly like what I'm looking for, like be very specific, because I've had conversations with folks where maybe I didn't do as much research or I wasn't sure what I wanted. And the conversation doesn't always go as well. But if you're like, hey, listen, like, one example is, hey, I'm not happy in my current role, or I was just laid off, so I need to get a new job. If you can share, some of the things that you're looking for in a new role, maybe companies you want to look for, maybe culture, like what's important to you. The more that you know what's important to you and what you're looking for, the more that people can help you. And like Candace said, a lot of times it'll lead to other intros, right? So like I've had so many conversations with folks where I was like, I couldn't personally help them, but I had a friend that could help them, right? So, someone that's really going to take the time and like really do some research. I had one person, that I talked to recently. They're like, I saw that you like to bake. Let's talk about that. You got to like connect with people on a personal level. So I think just like, prepare. And then I'll do like a little plug on using AI. You can actually use like AI, like ChatGPT and like Bard now, which like when I first started networking and looking for jobs was like not a thing. So like now we have so many tools. Like if you're nervous or you're not sure, like plug it into the like AI, plug it into ChatGPT, and like that can also help you like kind of prepare for those conversations and like ask it like, what are some really good conversation starters, or like, what are some good questions to ask a mentor? And you can specify based on different topics. So like you don't necessarily have to like create the wheel every single time. You can use, technology to kind of do that. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that is. And you brought up something about being specific about what you want. I know a lot of times people will come to me, I want to work in tech, or I want to work in sales. I want to be a recruiter. Well, why do you want to do that? And exactly what do you want to do in tech or sales? So when people know specifically their why, I think it's helpful too, because it can be difficult. You can lead someone to what they might want to pursue, absolutely. But I think it helps when people have an idea or very intentional about their networking. So thank you so much for that. All right. So this is going to be the fun part. Some of the questions from our audience that we received prior to organizing this. So here's a great question. I think it would be great if Candace, you can start off answering, and then Liz, you can also provide your thoughts. So the question is, I have plenty of sales and customer service experience. What do I need to do to get the interview and offer letter that I deserve?
Ooh, okay. This is a good one. So the offer that you deserve is the part that stood out to me the most. So it's tough, right? Because there's some amazing talent out here. And especially because there's been, layoffs with companies, like the job pool is so big right now. And to get a role, like you really, really have to stand out. And sometimes like I hear, like people do get offers sent to them that maybe aren't what they were hoping for. And my advice would just be to be patient. Be patient with the company and be patient with the process. So sometimes it takes a company a little bit to see the potential in you through the first round or second round or third round of interviewing. Sometimes you actually have to get in the role and say, this might be a conversation you have early on with your leadership. Like, I know that the offer is this. I'm not 100% comfortable with it, but within 3 months or 6 months, can we revisit this? If I hit X, Y, Z and goals, and have that real conversation with them, because for them, it may take them a while to see your potential, and it may take you a little bit to show what value you bring. Maybe you didn't shine as bright as you could have through the interview process, and you think that maybe your resume could just speak volumes for you, but they're looking for a little bit more. And when they bring on new hires, it's a huge investment and it's a huge risk that these companies are taking. So for them, they may be playing it safe with the lower offer, but don't think that that offer defines you in this space and how much you're worth. It just may be a stepping stone to your next offer. So I wouldn't necessarily say just turn down all the offers because it isn't the number that you envision, but I would say be patient and see the potential in that company in this times of this space. Because a lot of offers that were coming through 2 years ago were way higher than offers that are coming through now. And a lot of people are still stuck in that. Like they're still thinking like, BDR, SDR roles should make this amount, but things have changed. Tech has changed. AI has changed and brought a lot of, game changers for us, so it makes it different in this space. So just be patient, even though maybe the offer doesn't match what you think it should at the moment. It may turn into something amazing if you just ride it out for a little bit longer.
Thank you, Candace. I think that's great advice. Liz, I would love to get your thoughts about this too.
Yeah, I love that. Completely agree with all of that. And then after I go, I'd love to hear from you, Joy, as well, from like a recruiter perspective, because I feel like you'll have to share will be really impactful. I think step one is just getting the interview, right? I think that's like the hardest part. And I know for me, at least when I've been interviewing, like there's been times where at one company, I had so many informal interviews before I even got to that actual interview. It kind of got to the point where I was like, am I actually going to like get an interview? Like what's going on? Like I've talked to like 500 people on the sales team. I've talked to 2 sales leaders. I'm like, come on, I just like, give me a shot, So I've definitely been in that situation. I think it's a lot like sales. I try to tie like some metrics to it. So like understanding, okay, what are the companies that what are my top 10, 20 like dream companies? What roles? And then are there different roles that I think I might be a fit? And maybe interviewing for a couple roles, not just one, I think will kind of help you navigate with like expectations, how much money. I think getting that offer letter that you really want. It doesn't hurt to like interview for multiple roles if you think you're a fit for 2. So one example would be like, maybe you're an SDR. It doesn't hurt to interview for an AE and a CSM role because maybe, they're a little different, but a lot of the skills are transferable. So I think also the second piece is, I know everyone always says like, you have to reach out to the VP, you have to reach out to the hiring manager. And I absolutely think you should do that. But I also think reaching out to folks that are in the role that you want is also super powerful. It does take time, it takes effort, but like asking them, what does the team look like? Even if someone's like being really nice, like ask them what their compensation is. There's so many websites now where you can kind of check. And then gut check with those folks and ask for intros. So like leveraging your network, leveraging the community, asking like, hey, I'm interviewing at this company. Does anyone have any connections? And kind of leveraging your network to do that. So I'd say like that's step one is even when you get the interview, also, network with folks that work in the role, have them help prepare you, ask like what questions do they ask? Or is there any curveballs? Is there anything that I should know? And I think the people that also it'll be a good test on culture. Like, are people willing to help? Because a lot of times what the experience that you have throughout an interview process with folks that could be on your team is going to be very similar to what it's going to look like actually working with them and seeing if they're going to be good colleagues or these people you want to work for. And I think remember too, like a lot of people get so in their head about interviewing and they have to like make sure they're answering all the questions. When you're interviewing, it's also, you're interviewing the company too. So I think remember that, making sure that you get what you need from the company and like the culture and the compensation. So I'd say like getting the interview is one. And I think getting the offer that you want is just ask, right? Like, I think there's a stat that like there's so fewer women that actually ask for more than men. And it's because we get so nervous or we get in our heads or there's just so many different reasons why that happens. But I think just like being bold and asking and then knowing what number you want, but also being like that flexible to, are there opportunities to move up? Could you get something in writing saying, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'll get a level increase? Or if I do well, can I get a promotion in the first year, and getting that in writing? But I think there's also levers, and Joy, I'd love to hear from your perspective. What are the levers that you can pull? Maybe you don't get the exact base salary, but I know for me, for jobs that maybe the base salary wasn't exactly where I wanted to be, I got a sign-on bonus and that they met me in the middle. So can you factor in or do like more PTO days? Okay, maybe I'll have more time to spend with my family or my loved ones or my friends. So like maybe that's the trade-off. There's so many different things now, candidates can get really creative and really work with your recruiter, work with your hiring manager and just see like another. And I guess the third one is there stock that you can also get as part of like a negotiation package? So I know, some folks that are really close to me, they had a really high base salary. They were leaving, going to another company and the base just wasn't there, but they gave them a ton of stock that kind of got them closer to that number. So there's lots of levers. Joy, I'd love to hear from you. I see you're shaking your head. Kind of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so thank you, Liz. So, the part about I have plenty of sales and customer service experience, that is a bit of a broad question, but the way I'm going to answer that part, transferable skills. What I tell people, like for example, you'll have a teacher and they'll ask, well, how do I transition into sales? You know, ed tech. That's one way. Or someone has worked in the hospitality industry in sales or some form of sales. Apply to one of those positions that's already in the industry that you know something about. That will be an easier transition for you. So, in regards to getting the offer you deserve, like you said, Liz, I have found just based on my experience as a recruiter, women don't negotiate as much as men do. And I think it's very important to know your worth or what you bring to the table. One thing I always feel I don't like when I hear a candidate say, "Well, I'm looking for this, but I'm negotiable. It's okay. I'll take less." It's like, why are you selling yourself short? Why would you want to take less? Now, if someone they are knowing that they are applying for a position that doesn't pay as much as they made before, I understand that. But I think a lot of times women will sell themselves short. I always say negotiate, negotiate, and negotiate some more. Um, Good recruiters will advocate for their candidates. We all probably saw a post a couple of years ago about this recruiter who was trying to flex actually about how she did not get the candidate as much money as they deserved. Unfortunately, she got attention, but not the type of attention she wanted. And to me, that was so egregious because for me, whether I'm an in-house recruiter, I've worked agency, etc., third party, it is important to get the candidate what they need and want so they will be happy. Because most companies, and this is standard, a lot of times, unless you are working in a quota driven environment, you're only going to get about maybe 2.5 to possibly 6% increase annually. And I'm being very generous by saying 6%. So it is important that you literally secure the bag at the beginning when you start that position. Work with your recruiter, have those conversations. I talk about salary within the first 15 minutes of the interview. I've had candidates tell me, oh, well, we can discuss this later. No, we're going to discuss it now because I respect your time and I also respect my time. And I respect the time of the hiring managers. So let's have that conversation now so I can try to get you what you really want and what you deserve.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing to add as you were talking, I was thinking it's so funny. And I love to hear your perspective on this too from like a recruiter's. But a lot of times when you're in an interview or you're getting to the final stage, recruiters will ask, okay, and what's the range? What are you expecting for this role? And I never answer that question. Like every single time I've interviewed, I'd be like, well, that's great. I'd be happy to answer that question. I'd actually like to flip that on you. Can you share the range for this role? And I see you're laughing, but like I have so like a couple like when I was looking for a new role before I joined Salesforce, I had a recruiter ask me that, and I am so happy I did not share my number because it was so much lower than like the number that they shared. So you're just cutting, you're losing out on money when and actually like they know the range, they know the high end, they know the low end, they know what they're hiring for. And then if you ask for the range, and I've never had a recruiter tell me, no, I'm not going to share that with you. Like I could tell sometimes they get a little comfortable. They're like, oh, okay. Like, and then they're nervous because they're like, I hope it's high enough. So like at the end of the day, you got to just ask. I think, the more you can network with folks at the company, the more that you can kind of ask and then do your research before. There's so many websites now. But Joy, I saw you're laughing. So I hope that was helpful and that was a good
Okay, so this is, I mean, Liz, you're in sales. You know this expression, whoever gives the number first loses. Uh, so this is what I'll say. If I'm wearing my candidate hat, absolutely better ask the recruiter for the range first. But I will say this. In the last few years, there has been salary transparency. A lot of companies cannot keep up, okay, which state and which state doesn't. So they just list it now, which I think is great. I, as a recruiter, and I think every recruiter has a different level of experience. If someone asks me straight up, can you share the range? Yes, I'm going to share the range with them. I'm not going to play games. Like I mentioned, I respect my time. Also respect their time, but I really respect my time. We're going to talk about it. But yes, from a candidate perspective, it is wise to ask for the range up front. Giving away secrets here.
Now everyone will start the call.
I know everyone will know, but you know what? That's good. Candace, I'm going to direct this next question to you, and Liz, you might would like to add to, but Candace, I'll start with you. How can I structure my resume as an aspiring BDR, SDR to maximize its visibility and effectiveness in the job market?
Yeah, so kind of to your point that you mentioned earlier, like don't sell yourself short. So a lot of times I feel like we don't think about, some of our skills that are transferable, some of our skills that apply to the current role that we're applying for. So like just be aware of your, the value that you will be bringing. So one suggestion I have and that I always do is I will talk with someone in a space and just kind of share my resume with them and get their eyes on it, kind of pick their brain, share my experience, what I've done, what are things that I know that I'm really good at, and things that maybe I struggle with a little bit as well, to help me stage my resume to look more presentable for the role that I'm actually applying for. A lot of times we'll find that some of the people we coach, they'll leave some key things out. For instance, I worked in a medical field. And so coming to this space, I've never used the CRM before. But one of the mentors that I spoke with said to me, like, do you have a record system that you use in the medical office that you guys keep track of patients and their payments and when they've come into the office? And I was like, yes. I mean, I actually help install it in 3 offices. Like, I know it front to back. A lot of people hire me at their office so I could come set it up for them. Yeah, I'm like a goer in that. And he was like, that's what a CRM is. That's what our Salesforce is. You have the experience, Candace, to use a CRM. And for me, that was like, whoa, like mind blown. Would never thought that those two are like very similar or equal in a sense. And I was just talking to a mentor. So talking with, different people in this space, just really being open about your experience and, tools you used and why you used them. You could be working in retail. What are some tools you guys use in your day to day? You could be coming from education. What are some things that you did to structure your day? Do you use your calendar? Are you familiar with G Suite? Certain things that a lot of people just leave out because they don't think that there's much value in it, or they just are so used to doing it. It's so second nature where they're just like, oh yeah, I do that, but that was for that field. That's not for this field. So making sure that you share with someone who's in this space. And then the other point that I would say is just talking with someone that knows you well, and just be real and just say, like, what are some of my strengths that you think I have as a professional? Like, what are things that you like about me? And I've had people say things to me that it was like, for one, it made me feel super empowered because I didn't know that my friends view me this way. But two, like, it was like, wow, so how do I translate this onto a resume? Because this is my superpower in a sense. So I always include that on my resume. I always put what my superpowers are. I put that on my LinkedIn. And these are things that either mentors in this space, either some of my leadership in this space have said to me, or good friends that know me really well. And I live through those. And I continue to update them as I grow. So having superpowers on there helps, and just making your resume very concise and not too much information. No one wants to read something that just has everything on it. Try to get the things that stand out that apply for the actual role that you're applying for. If it's a BDR, you want things that will highlight, being a BDR. If it's something on the CS team, you want something in that sense. But like, we don't need everything. We don't need that you worked at Popeyes as your first job, me back in the day. Like, we don't need all of that. Just try to pull the things that would stand out and that would benefit you the most for this role is what I'll say.
Excellent. Before I go to Liz, yes, I tell people all the time, make sure it's relevant to the type of role you are pursuing. Because sometimes people will think, well, I need to add this or that. And it's like, it's so unnecessary because we're not going to look at that. And one thing I will add, and sometimes I'm surprised people who are looking to become a BDR, SDR, they completely they dismiss the fact that perhaps they were an athlete or they played sports in high school or college. Use that. Talk about that competitive edge that you have. I told someone recently, you played basketball in college? That should go on your resume. Hello. So, there are various things, like you said, superpowers. Liz, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and I love all of that. And I think, also adding to that, like having some type of metrics on your calendar, I think can help. And it's not just like, hey, this was my role, this is what I did. Like, what impact did I have at the business? So, and I think one example, and I remember when I was graduating college, this is like advice that one of my professors gave. He was like, listen, you could put that your first job, you worked at Starbucks all through college, but what you'll want to put on there is what Starbucks did you work at? Did you work at one of the busiest Starbucks in downtown Chicago? And then the more like numbers you can put, maybe you processed, $1 million in revenue each day because they sold so much. Like, that's huge. Like, you can now multitask, you can stay organized, you're working all day long, you're staying super busy. Like, that's like a transferable skill that like you can talk about in interviews. And I love the piece on like sports. Also, is there stuff like outside of work that you do? Do you volunteer? Do you give back? When maybe back 2017, I became a wish granter. I talk about that a lot for Make-A-Wish. I talk about like, what do I do outside of work? Because I've noticed now a lot of companies, they don't want to just look at a resume. They want to look at a whole person and understand, okay, is this someone that I'd want to work with? Are they going to fit into our culture? So one thing that I talked about outside of like women in sales stuff is, I've also volunteered with Rework and I gave back to the community and I help people break into tech. And I've done that. And that's something that I share in interviews, not because I want to talk about that, but it's like, hey, like I actually care about giving back. And one of the things that Salesforce cares about is also giving back, because we get 7 or 8 volunteer time off days a year. So that's huge at Salesforce. And like our leadership, our CEOs talking about it. So the more that you can talk about not just stuff like with work experience, but also like things that you do outside of the job. And that'll also give you a good opportunity to connect with folks from like a personal perspective that could be your potential manager one day.
That's a great point, Liz. And someone who I know who works at Salesforce mentioned that to me years ago, and I thought that was very very interesting. It's great. So we have a question. I am going to start off answering this question, and of course, if the two of you would like to add to it, please do. So this question is, from your perspective, do you think a candidate who has received a rejection letter can still secure the position if they are referred by an internal employee or if they proactively contact a recruiter? So, this is an interesting question, because I would say if you feel that you are a strong candidate for the position and you did not receive it, you can express that to the recruiter or the hiring manager. However, I think it's the way your approach is going to mean a lot. It is important that you respect that they felt that someone was a better fit at this time. But I think it is definitely advantageous to express that you are still interested in the company and you would still like to be considered. And I'll give you a good example. There have been times where I've interviewed candidates for whatever reason they just weren't strong enough, but something about them really resonated with me and I've thought about them. And this has happened. I've gone to other companies where I'm like, I remember that person. They were great. Let's see. They have 2 more years under their belt now. I would love to consider them. So, in a lot of ways, it is important to keep that communication or that relationship with the recruiter and possibly the hiring manager, but just be careful about the approach. You don't want to come off, and I'll say it, stalkerish, because that's never a good look. But if you use a certain amount of decorum and professionalism and respect, I think it is good. Now, in regards to being referred, I think sometimes people think just because they are referred by someone, they are automatically going to get that job. You might get your foot in the door a little quicker if you are referred, but as recruiters and hiring managers, we can't give preferential treatment to anyone. It's based on experience, it's based on qualifications, it's based on soft skills, how you present yourself, how you interview. That's what's going to get you a job. But if you know someone working at a company and they have a direct connection to that hiring manager, recruiter, absolutely use that referral. So I hope that answers the question. Candace, Liz, if you'd like to add to that, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is I know someone personally who did not get the offer, but he went back professionally and chatted with them and sent over an email, thanked them for their time. He talked about what he learned throughout the process of interviewing for their company, what his goals were if he was to get the role. And then he talked about what he was currently working on to ensure that he would be more qualified for a role, whether at their company or another company. And instantly, the team circulated that to leadership and reached out to him. And they ended up giving him one more round and they chatted with him and he got the job. So I feel like if you handle it in the like a professional way, as like you said, it could be of benefit for you. You might end up getting an offer. They may actually have 2 roles open instead of one. Or just think that you're so phenomenal for doing that and doing your homework that they have to get you on the team. So doing it in a tactful way, I think there's a ton of value there.
Absolutely.
I love
Liz?
that. Yeah, that's such, and I actually have had like multiple examples similar to that where I'm like, don't take the first no, just like ask, obviously it depends on how you do it. I'd say the only other piece of advice would be just ask, is there other opportunities within the company that you think I'd be a good fit for? Because sometimes, if it's a larger organization or they're hiring for multiple teams, like maybe you weren't a great fit for one role, but if you had a good experience, you didn't get any like really negative feedback, maybe it was like a skill gap, or maybe you were going against someone that was a little bit more qualified, like make sure you let them know, like, hey, I really want to work here, I really love the team, I really enjoyed our conversations, like, is there anything else? Or keep me in mind for future opportunities, because a lot of times people will consider you, and maybe a year or two later, a couple months later, there will be opportunities there for you.
Absolutely. I consider myself in some ways to be a matchmaker. So I remember at my previous place of employment, if someone wasn't right, because it was a huge organization, if someone wasn't right for my position or I liked them, but the hiring manager thought otherwise, I would tell my counterparts in other departments, I have this great candidate. Please consider them. And several times people actually received offers. So yeah, I would just say keep that relationship going with your recruiter, especially if you feel that there was some chemistry there. All right, we have another question. So this is for both of you. How do you assess a company's culture from a sales perspective?
Yeah, this is a yeah, I'll go. I say be your own BDR. That's what comes to mind first. So do your homework, do research on the company. There's so many sites you can go on to, like a Glassdoor, you can go on to like a G2, and you can hear what not only the employees who work there say, you can hear what people who are actually customers, like current customers, actually think of the products and how they feel on how the customer success team maybe responds to them, or how the sales team is after the sale. And I think that helps a ton. And then, like we said before, like chatting with people at the company is huge to me. If you're willing to take a time out your day to share a little bit about what you love about being at the company or what you drew you to that company, then that's, that's right there. Like that's golden. And a lot of times, I mean, you may not be able to get, someone in the C-suite, to hop on a call with you, but sometimes ICs can hop on with you. Like I know a lot of SDRs and AEs will do informational interviews where they'll hop on and they'll have a quick little 15 powwow with you and just like let you pick their brain about the company even before you apply for anything. And I always encourage everyone to do that because a lot of times, like they're very honest, even though maybe, the company may not want them to be, but they're very honest. They may be like, I'm actually leaving because I went on maternity leave. And when I returned, things weren't the best, and you're a parent. So now like, that's a huge factor for you. So just having like conversations with people who are actually in that company could help a ton. And then being your own BDR, doing the homework yourself, because you're interviewing this company just as much as they're interviewing you.
I love that. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for sure is just interviewing folks in the roles, but also like who are their counterparts, right? So maybe if you're interviewing for an AE role and they have a CS team, like what is the culture like on that team? How does the handoff process work? Because a lot of people just are nervous maybe to ask like what's culture like to like a hiring manager, but you can ask that to an individual contributor or a peer or maybe even another manager to just understand that. And then I think the second piece of advice is like leverage your network and leverage those communities. Candace talked about that in the very beginning. Like if I look back on like my experience and like some of the companies that I've loved working for and some that I didn't love as much. I like the ones that I really enjoyed and I had such a great experience. I did the work, I did the homework, and it's already so much work to like interview and prep for interviews and like, prep for, researching the company and researching the person and then also reaching out to like AEs or people in the role. Like it is like almost, I always joke, like it's like a second job. But like if you actually put in the work and you find something that's like a really good culture fit, and don't be scared to ask those hard questions. I love what Candace talked about. Like, hey, as a mom, or someone that maybe wants to be a mom one day, what does that look like? What is the parental leave? And it'll say a lot about the company and the culture based on how they treat moms or they treat parents or, I think just not being scared to like ask those questions. But it does, take a lot of work. So know that and do it for the companies that I think you really, really want to work for.
Excellent. You two have just dropped these great gems. Like, you guys are amazing. So I would like to hear from both of you. I'll start with Candace. Why do you think it's important for women to work in sales?
Yeah, because we're amazing. And I just feel like as a woman, like we're in tune with so much. And when we get there in these roles and these IC roles, leadership roles, like there's no stopping us. And I feel like women are super big on supporting each other. Not to say that men aren't, I won't say that. But I will say women are really good at working together, empowering each other and just growing. And I just feel like there's no reason that we should not be here and be more present. It's actually kind of sad to see that there's so many companies that don't have women in leadership roles because we are awesome at what we do. And I just love like this community, women in sales community, because as you guys get more involved in it and you'll see that like we're here leveling each other up. Like we have these lunches, every month, every quarter, we sync up. And it's not like, hey, let's just catch up. It's like, what's going on? How's your journey? Have you considered this conversation? Have you talked about salary? Like, what's your plan? How can I help get you there? I know someone like that's the power of women in this space. And I just love it. And I just think like, I can't wait until a couple of years from now and we see way more of us. Like there should be at least double of women in this space by then, hopefully.
I love that. Liz?
I love that. We're amazing. But no, I mean, honestly, I think kind of just a plus one on what Candace said, the more women that join the workforce, the more we can help each other out, right? So like the more women in tech, the more women that are getting promoted, the more minorities, the more folks that we can get to like help each other out. That's when we really start to make an impact, when we have more CEOs, because decision, and not just in sales, but also in the boardroom, right? Like that's where decisions are made from like a leadership perspective, a VP perspective, the boardroom, like, and all of that trickles down so much. So the more women that we can have join the workforce, that have joined the sales, like the more we can like lift each other up, help each other. And there's so many communities, not just women in sales, of like people that want to help each other, and we want to help each other grow, and we want to have those conversations like Candace was saying. And, we want to help strategize and make sure, like Joy was saying, we get that dream offer and we can help each other. And the more that we knowledge share, the more pressure that we can put on companies to, treat us better, pay us better, give us the benefits, give us the resources. So like, it is like a true team effort. And the more we can like come together and help each other, the more that we can all truly succeed. So that's all I'll have to say.
I think conversations like these are so important, and representation matters from a gender standpoint and ethnicity standpoint, because if more women, and also even say young women, girls, see themselves in these roles, they will be more inclined to pursue a career in sales. And education is important too, because some people sometimes still think that sales is just automotive sales or working at the mall. And it's just, there's a spectrum. So that's why it's so important to have these conversations and these types of communities. So I would like to thank everyone who's attended. If you are a member of Women in Sales, thank you so much for attending and engaging with us. If you are not a member, please join. There is a link in the chat to our Slack channel. We want you there. We want to have more members just like you, so we can truly build this community. I would like to thank Candace and Liz for participating. And of course, thank you to our founder, Alex Steen, for organizing this event. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of day, and happy holidays to you as well. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Bye.